Got it. You'd like me to write an article about 1,000-pound sisters stars Tammy and Amy arguing over wedding attendance. I'll create a detailed piece that blends recap, context from the show, background on their relationship, and analysis of why wedding attendance is a sensitive issue for them. Here's a full-length draft, around 2,000 words. 1,000-pound sisters, Tammy and Amy argue over wedding attendance. Reality television thrives on family dynamics, and few shows embody that better than TLC's 1,000-pound sisters. Since premiering in 2020, the series has followed Tammy Slayton and Amy Slayton-Halterman, two Kentucky-born sisters struggling with obesity, health complications, and the complexities of family relationships under the microscope of national television. What keeps audiences invested is not just the weight loss journeys, but the raw, emotional conflicts that reveal how love, loyalty, and resentment often collide in families. One of the most talked about moments in recent seasons centers on a painful argument between Tammy and Amy over wedding attendance. On the surface, it might seem like a simple disagreement about showing up for a family event. But for the Slayton sisters, who have weathered hospitalizations, marriages, breakups, and motherhood in front of cameras, the issue exposed deep-seated frustrations about support, priorities, and respect. This article takes a closer look at the argument, the broader context of Tammy and Amy's evolving relationship, and why wedding attendance became such a flashpoint. The Slayton sisters' background. Before diving into the fight itself, it's important to understand Tammy and Amy's story. Born and raised in Dixon, Kentucky, the sisters grew up in a working-class family. Their early lives were marked by hardship, including poverty, bullying, and an often strained relationship with their mother. Both turned to food for comfort, leading to obesity at an early age. By the time 1,000-pound sisters began filming, Amy weighed around 400 pounds and Tammy weighed over 600 pounds. The show chronicled their attempts to qualify for bariatric surgery, which required losing weight under strict supervision. While Amy succeeded relatively early in the series, undergoing gastric bypass surgery and eventually becoming a mother of two, Tammy's journey was rockier. She battled food addiction, multiple hospital stays, and a near-fatal medical crisis that eventually led to her being placed in a rehab facility for over a year. Through all of this, their sisterhood has been both a lifeline and a battlefield. They love each other deeply, but years of codependency, resentment, and different life paths have created frequent clashes. The wedding argument was one of the clearest examples of that tension bubbling over. Amy's marriage and Tammy's expectations. When Amy married Michael Halterman in March 2019, it was a major milestone. She had long dreamed of being a wife and mother, goals that motivated her to pursue weight loss surgery. But even before the wedding, tensions with Tammy were simmering. Amy wanted her sister by her side, yet Tammy's declining health, limited mobility, and unpredictable moods made planning stressful. Amy had to balance her excitement with the guilt of wondering whether her big day would exclude the person who had been her closest companion for decades. For Tammy, the situation was equally fraught. On one hand, she wanted to be there to support her sister. On the other, she struggled with feeling left out, overshadowed, and burdened by her limitations. In her view, Amy's new life with Michael meant less attention and loyalty toward her. So when the subject of wedding attendance came up, whether Tammy would show up, how involved she would be, and what sacrifices she expected from Amy, the disagreement turned personal fast. The core of the argument between Tammy and Amy over wedding attendance, wasn't just about logistics. It revealed deeper wounds. Tammy's feeling of abandonment. Tammy has often expressed feeling left behind. When Amy began focusing on marriage and children, Tammy feared she would no longer be her sister's top priority. The wedding became a symbol of that shift. Amy's need for independence. For years, Amy had been Tammy's caregiver, chauffeur, and emotional support system. By the time she was planning her wedding, Amy wanted to celebrate her own life milestones without constantly worrying about Tammy's needs or approval. Health and practicality issues. Tammy's size and medical issues made attending events complicated. Transportation, accessibility, and stamina all played a role. Amy, already stressed by wedding planning, grew frustrated that these challenges overshadowed her happiness. Resentment on both sides. Tammy accused Amy of not prioritizing her feelings. Amy accused Tammy of being unsupportive and making everything about herself. The fight escalated into a classic sibling standoff, accusations, tears, and hurt feelings that lingered long after the wedding day. Why weddings hit a nerve? Weddings are emotionally loaded events in any family. They symbolize transition. One person starts a new chapter while others must adjust to the change. For the Slayton sisters, this symbolism carried extra weight. For Amy, her wedding marked proof that she was moving forward despite the odds stacked against her. She was no longer just one half of the Slayton sisters, but a wife with her own household. For Tammy, the wedding underscored what she felt she was missing: romantic love, stability, and recognition. Watching Amy achieve those goals highlighted her own struggles. The clash over wedding attendance wasn't just about showing up at a ceremony. It was about whether Tammy could accept Amy's independence and whether Amy could balance loyalty to her sister with loyalty to her new family. Fans' reactions. The argument played out on 1,000-pound sisters in front of millions of viewers, and fan reactions were divided. Some sided with Amy, arguing that she deserved to celebrate her wedding without catering to Tammy's constant needs. They felt Tammy was being selfish by making the day about her insecurities instead of Amy's happiness. Others sympathized with Tammy, noting that her fears of abandonment were valid. They pointed out that she relied heavily on Amy for daily life, and that being left out of such a milestone deepened her sense of isolation. Social media lit up with debates. On Twitter and Reddit, viewers dissected every line of the fight, some accusing Tammy of emotional manipulation and others calling Amy cold-hearted. The polarized responses reflected how relatable sibling rivalries can be, even when magnified by reality TV. The aftermath. Ultimately, Tammy did not play a major role in Amy's wedding, and their relationship remained strained afterward. Amy went on to welcome 2 children with Michael before their eventual divorce in 2023. Tammy, after a long and difficult rehab stay, married Caleb Willingham in 2022, though he tragically passed away in 2023. The wedding argument, however, lingered as a turning point. It forced both sisters to confront uncomfortable truths. Amy could no longer be Tammy's full-time caretaker if she wanted to build her own family. Tammy needed to accept responsibility for her own happiness rather than relying on Amy to fill every role. While their bond has survived, the scars of that fight still surface in later seasons. A deeper look, why Tammy and Amy understand why something like wedding attendance could cause such turmoil, it helps to consider the psychology of their relationship. Codependency. For years, Amy and Tammy were locked in a codependent dynamic. Amy felt responsible for Tammy's well-being, while Tammy leaned on Amy for emotional and physical support. Breaking free from that cycle was always going to be painful. Enmeshment. Their identities were intertwined. They branded themselves as the Slayton sisters, filmed YouTube videos together, and shared nearly every life experience. When Amy began carving out her own identity, Tammy experienced it as rejection. Different coping mechanisms. Amy tends to channel stress into action, surgery, marriage, children. Tammy often reacts with defensiveness, sarcasm, or withdrawal. This mismatch leads to misunderstandings escalating quickly. Public pressure. Living on reality TV means every fight is magnified. Ordinary sibling squabbles become national debates, which adds more pressure to resolve issues in ways that satisfy not just family, but also fans. Why this moment resonated with viewers. Part of the reason this fight struck such a chord is because it felt universally relatable. Almost everyone has experienced tension at weddings, whether it's choosing a bridal party, handling guest lists, or managing family expectations. Add in years of baggage, and conflicts are inevitable. But the Slayton sisters' version resonated more deeply because it highlighted themes of change versus stability. When one sibling moves on, the other can feel abandoned. Love versus obligation. How much do you owe your family when starting your own? Health and accessibility. How do chronic health issues complicate life milestones? Fans weren't just watching a TV show, they were seeing echoes of their own family struggles. Lessons from the argument. While the Slayton sisters' drama makes for compelling television, there are broader takeaways. Boundaries are crucial. Amy had to set limits on how much of her life revolved around Tammy. Without boundaries, resentment built up. Support looks different over time. What Tammy needed as a sister wasn't always what Amy could realistically give once she became a wife and mother. Communication prevents escalation. Much of their fight stemmed from assumptions and unspoken fears. Clearer conversations could have softened the blow. Self-worth must come from within. Tammy's happiness couldn't hinge solely on Amy's attention. Likewise, Amy couldn't measure her success by whether Tammy approved. Conclusion: more than a wedding fight. At first glance, the argument between Tammy and Amy over wedding attendance might seem like typical reality TV drama. But beneath the shouting and tears lies a story about two sisters navigating love, loyalty, and change under extraordinary circumstances. The fight was never just about whether Tammy would show up to Amy's wedding. It was about whether their bond could withstand the inevitable shifts that come when one person grows and the other feels left behind. For fans, it was heartbreaking and fascinating to watch. For Tammy and Amy, it was another chapter in a lifelong struggle to balance sisterhood with individuality. And for anyone who has ever fought with a sibling over a wedding or any milestone